And we're continuing with the sixth chapter of The Whispering Mountain. Erebus has ridden for quite a while on a miniature camel through the mountain and has come out the other side. Straight ahead, nothing could be seen but greenish dawn sky with a couple of silvery seagulls floating across it. But when Erebus craned far out and looked down, she could see at a giddy depth below great breakers crashing over jagged rocks at the foot of a cliff. And if she turned to look up, she could see that the cliff continued toward the sky for many hundreds of feet. "There is only one place I know where the cliffs are as high as this," Erebus muttered, "and that's south of Port Malin, where the castle stands. But, Dewy Sant, who'd have thought we'd come so far?" There was no doubt of their location, though, for when she leaned out farther and still looked to her left, she could see a slender black and white finger thrusting from the waves. The Shambles lighthouse, set there to warn shipping of dangerous shoals. A gentle tug at her hand reminded her that her own position was none too safe, and also that a patient was waiting. She withdrew cautiously from the window slit and followed up the stair once more. They had not much farther to go. The staircase here branched and divided into many narrow passages running hither and thither inside the cliff. Each led to half a dozen or so cell-like chambers. Some of these were fairly large, some very small, but they all resembled one another in three respects. They were not natural caves, but had been quarried out not long ago by the tools of men. Each had a tiny window hole looking out to sea, and each was furnished simply, but with a richness that made Erebus gasp. Jugs, basins, and pails, the commonest utensils, were made, without exception, of pure shining gold, beautifully worked. But there were no tables or chairs, no cupboards, no doors. The curtains and bedding were all made of thick black coarse material. Erebus guessed it to be woven camel's fur. In another sad particular, all the dwellings were alike also. Each contained one or two sick people, sometimes three or four. Erebus was touched to the heart by the uncomplaining patience of these sufferers as they lay, racked with coughing, feverish and heavy-eyed on their camel fur pallets. Men, women, and tiny children, their eyes followed her trustfully as she passed from cave to cave, dispensing medicines, pastilles, and powders, rubbing their chests with wintergreen, bathing their foreheads with essence of mint and balm. They were all very alike, small, dark, hairy people, pale-skinned, with lustrous, flashing black eyes. Very few seemed to have escaped the sickness, but those who were still able eagerly helped Erebus tend the others. All too soon, of course, her stock of medicines began to run low. She had not brought nearly enough for so many patients. "What is to be done now, just?" she considered. "If I go home for more, that wastes a terrible deal of time, and I am afeard some of them will die if they do not get help soon. I wonder if someone would take a message back to Dada, and then I could stay here looking after the rest. Can any of you understand me?" she asked three or four who were assisting her, and tried to explain what she wanted. They shook their heads doubtfully, although they seemed to understand a word here and there. They could not grasp the whole message. Stepping aside, they conferred together, and she caught the name Yehimelech repeated several times. Then her original guide, she distinguished him by his cap, seized her hand again and led her along another passage to a cave she had not visited yet. This was larger than the rest, screened off by a camel fur curtain, and occupied by one man alone. He was plainly very old. His long beard and thick bushy hair and whiskers were perfectly white. He looked frail beyond belief, leaning back on a pile of camel fur cushions. But the eyes in the wasted face were deep and dark and full of intelligence. His tone when he addressed Erebus was faint and hoarse but authoritative. "On behalf of my people, I, Tabit, Euleus, Yehemelich, architect, engineer, and hereditary foreman of the children of the pit, do thank you, lady, for your goodness in coming here to help us. I fear we can give you little in return except gold. Of that, useless though it be, as much as our last 7 camels can bear, you shall carry away if you wish." Here he was interrupted by a terrible fit of coughing, which made his slight body shake like a cobweb in the wind. "There is glad I am able to help, sir," Erebus said when he had recovered a little. "Indeed, I am not wanting your gold. I thank you, but only to do a bit more. If I could write a message to my dad, Nadagadoo, could one of your people take it back to him, then he could be bringing our wagon over to Port Malin, and no need to go all that way for the medicine, see?" "Shishak!" the man on the couch called. The guide, who had waited outside, came in and bowed respectfully. "Write your message," Yehemelich told Erebus, "and Shishak will ride back with it, but I beg you, ask your father to be secret and not mention this matter, or we shall be in danger of slavery and death." "No need to worry," Erebus assured him, scribbling a note on the paper that had held a powder of foxgloves. "Not a one to gossip, my dada." But she added the warning, folded the paper, and gave it to Shishak, who bowed again and departed at speed. "I have asked him to give Shishak as much medicine as he can carry, and to start himself for Port Malin directly. Now can I be doing something to relieve your worship?" Erebus said. "Not until you have helped every last one of my people," Yehemelich answered proudly, through another fit of coughing. "Shall it be said that the leader accepted relief while others were in need? Never." So Erebus returned to the other sufferers, and had soon exhausted her entire stock of medicine on them. She had noticed, as she went from one sick bed to another, that there was pitifully little food in the caves, a small quantity of dried fish, a few gulls' eggs, nothing more. Plainly, since most of the able-bodied men had fallen ill, stocks had run low. It seemed to her that part of the people's trouble might come simply from starvation and a lack of green stuff. Struck by an idea, she returned to Yehemelich. "Sir," she said, "do any of your tunnels lead down to the foot of the cliff?" "Assuredly. How else would my people catch the fish needed to support us and our camels?" "Could somebody show me the way down?" "Strato, tens!" he called, and when two of the helpers came in he gave them orders to take Erebus where she wanted to go. They led her down hundreds of steps, the noise of the sea outside becoming louder as they went, and finally emerged through an entrance cunningly masked with seaweed to an outcrop of rock at the base of the cliff. There was no beach, and little danger of being seen. The tide, as it fell, merely exposed more of the dangerous rocks. All fishing craft kept well away. The ebbing tide had also left behind great swags and piles of seaweed. This Erebus proceeded to collect, and the two men helped her. They rinsed it in a trickle of fresh water which ran down the cliff, and took it to an empty cave where Erebus kindled the driftwood fire and made signs that she wanted a large pot. A gold one was fetched, large enough to contain a whole sheep. Half filling this with fresh water, she boiled up the seaweed into nourishing broth, which, when thick and succulent, was distributed in gold cups, gold mugs, and gold pipkins to the entire community. Erebus took a bowlful to Yehemelich, who accepted it gratefully. We had made certain everyone else had some too. "Ah," the hereditary foreman sighed when he had drunk his soup. "I was angry when I discovered that Shishak and Ahiram had gone to seek help without asking my permission. They knew I would never have given it, but I believe they made a wise choice. With the help of this excellent broth and your good medicines, lady, my people may be saved yet." "May I ask a question, sir, if it will not trouble you?" Erebus asked, taking the bowl from him. "Surely." "Why do you, only of all your people, speak my language?" "It has been a rule with us," he said, "ever since we were brought to this country by force 102 generations ago, to prevent our being absorbed into the conquering race and forgetting our ancestry. Only one man in each generation is allowed to learn the outlandish tongue." 100 generations? Just dim Dawath, Erebus said to herself in amazement. "Even if each man lived only till he was 20, that is 2,000 years." "But who brought your excellency? But who brought your excellency's people over here, then?" she asked. "Was it old Romans, maybe? And where did you come from? And why did they bring you in the name of goodness?" "They brought us as slaves to mine gold for them out of these hills," he said. "They brought us because above all other races we were skilled in crafts of mining and working gold. And then, when our conquerors went away, we were left behind. So we hid ourselves in the mines that we had dug, and resolved that never again would we let ourselves be enslaved. As to the land we came from, it is very beautiful, with blue sky and green trees, and golden sands and white cities. It lies many months' journey to the south. Alas, for